Hi again. So today's episode of the Organisational Intelligence Project is episode 2, and it's called "The Founder is the Database." And that's related to, if you've seen the first episode, we were talking about the concept of organisational intelligence in relation to the world of AI and agentic workflows and agentic teams, and how organisations can help. Part of the project research we're doing is seeing how the agentic AI teams can be integrated into an organisation, not just for data and information, but also to actually understand what is this corporate intelligence that we're looking at. Basically, and this episode is about how a lot of the operational mechanisms of a company are not in the policies, in the database, in the whatever. They're with the founder. That's why this episode is called "The Founder is the Database," right? Now we have a particular focus, just for clarity. We're focused on those organisations that have grown up over the last 30, 40 years. They're small to medium. I'm not talking enterprises here. Enterprises at the agentic organisation intelligence level is absolutely where this can be applicable if we prove it as we go through our research. But our our avatar, if you like, is the 30 to 40 old business owner, baby boomer type of area, have built a successful business over that time. No successes, want to retire. How do we extract that information from their heads, i.e. the founder is the database, and put it in a system where the business can run without them? So in fact, it's a sellable business. It's where we started, right? We built products like Kira around that. It's opened the door to a much larger conversation. And even this morning, I was watching one of the presenters from Anthropic, from one of their development teams, talking about how they are coordinating and orchestrating their agentic teams to be able to extract and contextualize and read memories and create memories and whatever, which is fantastic, right? What's missing, though, is the extraction bit from here of founders and executives and people who've been in the company for 5, 10, 15, 25 years, right? How do you get that out of here into a point where agents can actually operate and act on it? So that's what we call agentic organisational intelligence. The project is to work out, A, if it's possible, B, if it is, how, and see where it is applicable, where it's useful. That's the purpose of it. But so that's the setup. The topic of this episode is "The Founder is the Database," and it's that, okay, who do we call when nobody knows, right? Something happens, no one knows what to do. This is new, or it's out of the bounds. It's an edge case, as we call it in coding and programming. Call the boss. Why does the boss know? Not in the CRM, not in the ERP if he's got one. It's not in a document. They just know. Well, two things. They can just know, or they have the capacity within their expertise to be able to make the call, which is a whole nother structural thing that we might get into at some point. So that's the question of this episode. What if the founder is actually the database, right? They built the business. They've been there through every iteration. They've known when customers have come and they've gone and what they've done and who the suppliers are, the employees, the corporate memory, if you like. As we always say, some of it is captured. It's captured in the accounting systems. It's captured in the CRM if you've got one. It's captured in the other tools and things you have. But it is the detail, the context, the background that's up here, right? Why did we take this project, not that project? Why did we make this decision, not that decision? What are the exceptions to this? The history, the relation, all those things. What not to do, right? And who to call if it all falls over. Who to call? And what matters? So the business relies on knowledge that isn't just in the systems. I think that we can all recognise that. If we have a look at our own businesses, whether you're an employee or the owner or whatever, you just know, right? There are certain things that are never written down, can't be written down, or just not written down, but the decisions around those things are needed to have the business function. So someone has to make the decision. Someone has to have the background. And in a lot of cases, that is the founder, and certainly in the type of businesses we're talking about. Otherwise, it is, senior executives, and quite often not just senior executives, people all the way down the chain, right, in their particular area. As I think we said in the last video, you ring Bruce if you want something in operations, and you ring Cheryl or whoever in accounts if you want to know about X, Y, Z, because they just know, right? So that's what we're calling organizational intelligence, and how we extract that from the Cheryls, the Bruces, the founders, whatever, is the kind of the through line for all of these episodes and the research I'm doing, interviews I plan to do with many of you. And feel free to let me know if you'd love to be interviewed about your side of either AI, the tech side, or organizational intelligence, as in the corporate experience. Would love to hear about that. So when we think about the founder's internal map, right, how does the founder connect all these things when people come to him or her? Obviously, there's a whole range of interrelated contextual background areas. The customer, the history of the customer, the relationship, what you've got, the trust level between the customers, suppliers, and everything else. The exceptions that you're prepared to make, you as the founder or decision maker are prepared to make, and the judgment call, because hopefully you've made some judgment calls in the past, not all of which have been successful, but you've made them because you had to make a call. But you've learned from that, right? And so certain ways of doing things now are based on what's gone wrong in the past. I was previously in both the aviation and the railway industries through my career, and all of the what's called the safe working rules in the railway industry and the aviation sort of directives with regard to safety in the aviation industry have all come about because things went wrong, right? A train crashed, two trains came together, other issues. So people looked at that, reviewed it, and came up with what are called safe working rules and signalling rules to make sure these things don't happen. And every time you have a train crash or incident or accident anywhere in the world, the world takes notice and says, how did that happen? Do we have that problem inherent in our system? Aviation is the same. When you look at any of the FAA rules or whatever, it's because somebody did something wrong somewhere and it put people at risk, caused a crash, did something else, they reviewed it. And that's how you learn from that global, if you like, corporate intelligence or organizational intelligence. We're looking to do that at the enterprise level or the company level. How do we extract that from Fred's head, right? Put it into a knowledge base that not just agents, but people can access as well. But at the same time, if you want to bring the efficiencies of agentic networks and whatever into your business, you still need to have that corporate knowledge, that organizational knowledge locked in. So, as I've always said, if you want to know my definition of an AI or an agent, they're like a very, very bright intern, right? They come in, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and ready to go, enthusiastic, very, very clever, have a whole range of sort of capability for doing tasks, but you need to give them background and context to make sure that what you want them to do is not just the thing, but they need to understand the why. We do this because I'm asking for that because it gives background and context to the intern, and it's the same for agentic agents, right? For AI agents, you need to give that background and context. Now, you don't want to give that every single time, so you need to give the agents the tools and the resources and the knowledge repositories to be able to access what they need when they need it. But a lot of it, as I said, it's up here. It needs to be brought out of here and taken back into the organizational intelligence layer. And we look at how we could do that over time, but really, at the moment, we're just thinking about where could this be valuable? Could it be valuable? If it could be, how do we go about it? And as I said, today it's talking about the founder building the database. That's where we go. Now, of course, memory isn't static, right? So, and this is where humans have their failings, because the boss made some decisions 5 years ago with relation to XYZ in the context of that environment that he was in or the business was in, and that a certain event, certain interpretation, certain judgment, certain decision, certain outcome, and then updated the memory, if you like, collectively, hopefully throughout the organisation, but certainly in his head, about how to deal with that situation in the future. Now, it's not like a dusty old filing cabinet. You've actually got these things, you've got to update them. You've got to do version and control. You've got to say, okay, well, this is the latest version of what happened because of the latest things that happened. that provides more context. And that's all. That is the same for humans as it is for an AI agent. You still need to give that, otherwise nobody can make correct decisions. So the question is, with all of that in mind, what happens when a founder leaves, retires, dies, just moves on, loses interest, right? So the objective of this whole organisational intelligence, and certainly the agentic organisational intelligence process or research that I'm doing, is to understand how identifying these problems, like this is the issue, it's up here, how we go about extracting that in a way that is not overly burdensome, if that's the right word. I mean, the kind of founders that the kind of business owners that we're looking at, right? They've been running this stuff for years. They haven't got the time because their time because they have no systems for a start, and they've generally got either some form of ADHD or something else. But anyway, they're madly passionate about their business, but they haven't stopped to do that wonderful working on their business rather than in their business. Wildly successful, most of them that we're looking at, we're wanting to make sure that there's a way to extract that. Now, looking at them, because that's an edge case in itself, right? If you're talking about mid to large enterprises, of course, there's a lot more layers of systems and bureaucracy that are already in place. Doesn't necessarily make for a more efficient system. Quite often can slow things down, and still rely on shareholder accounts, right, to make sure that you're getting that bit right. And certainly, there's always, in most businesses, when someone new comes in, they do the company orientation, or what do they do? And there's a quiet word on the side. So if you need anything about invoicing or whatever, go and see Bruce or go and see Cheryl, and that'll keep you right. So that's again just human nature being what it is. Okay, so this is the whole idea, right? Now we are treating this as an exercise in how we could extract that information, what we do with it when we get it out, and how does that make it useful for both the human side as well as the agentic side of the business. And that can be anything. It'd be the financials, the contracts, the customers, and there's a whole range of things, right? Now, you can certainly go through an exercise of blocking out executive time, and not just executive time, but company-wide time, to try and map all these things out and get a corporate history. We think that's challenging for most people, certainly in the focus sort of group that we're looking at specifically, because there's just no time, right, to do that. And you've got to have somewhere to start. So we're looking at ways we can use agents to actually work with the with the executives, the owners, whatever, as part of their day-to-day operations, and not so much pin them down on how things are done, but do a lot of observation and monitoring with respect to how they do things, learn from that, see patterns, understand how they can be applied into a kind of corporate memory database or corporate memory layer as an organizational history, and then take it from there. So at least you've got some structure and framework around this is actually how the business is done. Now, how do we do that so that it's observable, visible, and usable by the rest of the organisation? So that's what we're working on. I certainly hope that this is of interest to people out there in both the AI agentic world as well as those in the business world, because I think there's probably some very great ways now to manage agentic teams within organisations that have got a really good, solid, systemised structural knowledge base, if you like. But I do think there's always going to be gaps, and we're looking at how we can infill those, because those are the things. It's the corporate judgment at the end of the day on going forward on projects, going on decisions on suppliers and whatever else, that you can proceduralise, but it's the context about why certain decisions are made and how we go about it that you kind of want the flexibility, but you've got to understand the context. So this is what our framework and research is going on at the moment. If I can put it in a nutshell, the thought experiment is, what if an AI agent or AI agentic team collectively could remember what the founder remembers, why decisions were made, the customer history, all the exceptions, the lessons, the judgment, not just information, but within the context of the organisation. So that is the hard part. How do you get it up here out to point where the organisation can structure it, have it accessible, make it usable, make it useful, and also understand that within humans there is always implicit knowledge. Right, this is things that not even necessarily from the experience within a company. It's what they bring from outside, other companies' experience that they've got, just their relationships and how they go about their life. Right, they can bring its own implicit knowledge of how and why things are done. Challenging to get that information out. But if an organisation is to run efficiently, and certainly from the perspective of what we see as our primary focus group, is the baby boomers who want to retire, want to sell, whatever, to help them get maximum value from that process of exit, we need to work out a way to help them get that out and get it into, as I said, something that the buyer and the next owner can actually use to have a contextual understanding of the business and how they go forward from that point. Documents aren't enough, conversations aren't enough, data isn't enough. We need decisions, the kind of decisions being made, context around them, the relationships, the outcomes, and the judgment. And that's why in many of these cases, at the moment, the founder is the company's most important database. The database has a retirement date, and the question is, how do we get that information out from there into a format that the rest of the organisation can use? So thanks very much, and hopefully this is a journey that you'll continue with me as we go forward. The next episode is how do you capture what nobody writes down? So that's that next step in this process, looking very clearly at it's up here, how do we get it out and get it down? So thank you very much for that. Hope you enjoy it, and looking forward to catching up. I'm free for all sorts of interviews and conversations, a chance to interview you if you've got that background experience. Love to hear about your experiences. Love to hear your thoughts on this. Looking forward to some great interaction. Thanks.